Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Xaereth Prevails, a Grand Arena story.
This is it. Don't get scared now.
This is kind of a holiday special just because this is an episode that's going to be released on a holiday, and it's also using video clips from a movie that was centered around a holiday, so happy holidays to all of us. We're still doing the 3v3 thing in Grand Arena Championships, and, we're in our new group now after I lost in the finals last match by 1 point, one stinking point. Now we're facing a guy named Dr. Burninator.
Burninating the countryside, burninating the peasants.
I really like this episode because I do make a mistake at some point in the episode. I'll let you guys find out for yourselves, but I spend the rest of the time trying to react to that and clean up my mess from that, and so, I really like this kind of episode just because it shows resilience in the face of adversity, and, I know that holidays aren't always extremely adversarial, but some people's holidays really are, and so resilience is really important to me as a person. It's one of my ideals, and I hope it shows through in this episode. So let's move on to the different stats that we're looking at here in the match, because that's always a great way to start a match, is trying to scout out your opponent and what they could potentially do to you and what you could do to them potentially. Immediately you can see that my opponent has me beat on mods, or rather on relics, and that's pretty par for the course at this point. Everyone's got me beat on relics, so not a big story there. I do have my opponent beat pretty significantly in Gear 13 and Gear 12. They do have more Gear 11, but that doesn't matter nearly as much. And, I do have more Zetas, and I have better mods. So I would say that the advantage actually goes to me. Relics I know are important, I realize that, and I work on them pretty consistently, but that's not as big of a deal as the other things in my opinion. So looking at the stats overall in Grand Arena, I think I've had more success than my opponent, but again, this really doesn't matter. Like, I had my opponent beat last round, and in terms of overall success, but they beat me by a point. So 3v3 is just a totally different animal, and we need to consider everyone as dangerous until proven otherwise. So moving into this match, you expect your opponent to put their strongest teams on the 3v3 zone at this point anyways, until theory has improved, and these teams aren't really that scary. They do have a relic 7 Bossk, which is scary. They have a relic Bastila with Hoda, which is actually really resilient, and then on the top you see they put Palpatine with Bastila and Malak. I don't know where Darth Revan is. They do have a fast Darth Revan somewhere, but I didn't see it in the initial opening moves. So let's move on into the matches.
This is my house. I have to defend it.
So first off, we want to be able to take out this Bastila team with Hoda and Ezra, and Bastila and Hoda actually have a lot of synergy together. Like, they can be extremely tough to move, and then Ezra hits like a truck if they're modded correctly, and my opponent definitely did have a pretty strong Ezra. They were pretty fast, and I didn't really want to have to deal with this, so I took Qi'ra with Nest. I wanted to get an undersized win, and you never know if Nest is going to have someone else they can take out on their own. Even in 3v3, it's not always guaranteed, and so I decided to throw her in there now. I thought that there was a pretty good chance that I'd be able to win this match. She's relic 7, and there's only one relic character on here, and it's Bastila, and Bastila isn't known for her damage, but you'll see in this match that she actually does a pretty credible job of doing some good damage, and so I decided to try taking out Hoda first, actually, before I took out Bastila. And I know that you don't actually have to kill Hoda first or anything. Like, if you take out Bastila, then Hoda just disappears, but not only am I vindictive, I also decided, like, Hoda is constantly giving bonus protection and healing to Bastila, and he's the source of the problems, and he's significantly more squishy than Bastila is at Relic 3, and so he's harder to kill sometimes because he's stealth and everything. He has his bonus protection, but in this case, I looked at my opponent's mods and everything, and their Hoda was modded indifferently, like a lot of us do, because he's just always hidden and he never dies. So after taking him out, Bastila folded pretty quick and got a quick 51 banners, undersized win, and we're well on our way.
Be a good little fella now and open the door.
Next up, we had the Bossk team at Relic 7, and then we had Boba and Dengar, who were well modded, and pretty resilient as well. They definitely had a couple pieces on them. As well, but they're a Gear 12, and so I decided to take Jedi Training Ray. Now, after my last episode, I had vowed that I was going to take C-3PO with her instead of R2-D2, but I decided to cancel that just because R2-D2 is just fantastic for controlling here, and this match is absolutely a control match. Like, the bounty hunters have more hitting power in almost every regard, or at least they have more resilience combined with hitting power. Like, I think they're a superior team in 3v3, but the thing is, you have way more control when you're using the Jedi Training Ray team. And so, what we're trying to do here is just get stuns and ability block. You can see that my ability to ability block is just completely lacking against Bossk. If he gets his taunt up, we are finished, though. And so we need to get a stun or ability block on him consistently, or we need to be removing his turn meter. He has incredible speed, though. He's right around 300 speed, and none of my characters, I guess they're all around that speed now. They are all Gear 13 now, Relic 1 and everything, but, my characters are pretty fast, but to keep a character from being able to take a single turn in 3v3 is really hard, especially when Bossk has over 100 tenacity, and that's exactly what he did have. And so we're just trying to control the situation, trying to, take out Boba, even as Bossk is just taking hits and being whittled down. We want to take him out. Dengar we can't do anything about, so we're just going to ignore him until he's the last one, as he always is. He's kind of like Hoda in that sense. Like, no one ever tries to kill Dengar first, because what's the point? But when it does happen, it's magical. Unfortunately, guys, this is not one of those times. It's not magical. It's a magical time of year, but it is absolutely not a magical matchup here. So we're trying to take out Bossk. He's Relic 7. He's got all the hit points and protection in the world, all the armor. He is really, really hard to shift at Relic 4. He just really is. You see that R2-D2 did smoke, and, that was a mistake on my end a little bit, just because, I did want to use a special because that helps with Illuminated Destiny from BB-8, but I also wanted BB-8 to be the only one hit. However, it's because Dengar was stealthed, he negated all of the stealthing attempts that I had. However, it didn't matter. Dengar was alone, and we were able to just take him out. 51 banners. I've decided that 51 banners is the cutoff point for me being okay. Like, after 51, if I get lower than that, then I feel disappointed in myself. So, now that you guys know about my fragile mental state, let's continue on to the next match. We want to first take on this last team here on the bottom zone, just so that we have full information and we can plan our different matches. And, this is the team that everyone's running. It has Talzin and Zombie and Acolyte. Sometimes people run Asajj instead of Talzin, and that's fine. This is kind of overkill because it's all Gear 12 characters, and my bounty hunters are all Gear 13. And the main advantage from Night Sisters is that they can revive, and the thing is, Boba and Jango just don't allow revives, and so I do have the unique Zeta on Jango. So 54 banners, that was really simple. Almost feel like I should have used a worse team, but hard to complain about 54 banners, and now we know all the different teams in the back. So let's take a look at what they have. And they do have a General Skywalker team, a Clones team, Geonosians, and a pretty cool DOT team with Vader lead and mission. So I decided to kind of do a little bit different than I normally do and try to, I don't like taking out the back zone first, and I definitely did not just target the back zone, but I needed to make sure that certain key squads in the back were going to be taken care of before I was able to really focus on the top to be able to clear up ships. And so the first thing I wanted to do was take out these Geonosians. Now, my opponent did have a Relic 7 Brood Alpha, and this squad, it's pretty strong. So, it makes you nervous in 3v3. It's like, how much damage can they really do? I did want to take Traya. I wanted to save Nihilus. In 3v3 especially, Nihilus is just not necessary to counter Geonosians, even if they're pretty high relic. And so we're just going to use Traya, and then I have a Relic Marauder, which I would just normally just not use at all, but he has high enough health and protection. You could see I was checking that. I think he's Relic 2 or 3, I don't know, he's indifferently Relic, but he is Relic. He is strong, and probably just as resilient as my Gear 12 Nihilus at this point. So I wanted to put Isolate on a character, and I actually made a mistake here. I should have targeted the Geonosian Brute here, just because that way That way the Alpha would still be losing his health, and I would eventually be able to just take out the Alpha. However, the Brute, if I'm not targeting him, I have to target him and hit him with everything, you know, if we don't have him isolated. And so he's just constantly taunting. I want to be working on these other Geonosians. I want to work on Soldier and Spy because they're the real threats here. And Brute, if I take him out, they'll just summon another one, and you don't want that. You don't want them to summon another one because he comes back with full health, and then his health pool is combined with the rest of the Geonosians, so it's like a huge heal for the entire team as well. So I was able to take out the Brute, or rather the Soldier. I did take out the Brute once, and then I took out the Soldier, and then even though he was isolated, the Geonosian Alpha was able to summon another Brute. So that was a pretty big mistake on my end. You know, I was just really hoping that it wouldn't be a deal breaker. The other problem is this Geonosian Alpha, like the Brute Alpha, has a ton of hit points because he's Relic 7. He's just really hard to take out, and because he's not assisting or anything, he's not actually losing any health anytime anyone else assists. And so I have to kill the Brute again, and you know, hopefully I can take out Spy now, and you know, it's just a matter of time. I'm going to be able to beat this team, but it's just taking way longer. And you know, that could have been a pretty huge mistake in 5v5. Luckily, you know, they just don't have the power, the hitting power, to be able to mess with me too much. So finally I got smart enough to put Isolate on the really weakened Brood Alpha, which I didn't really know if that was actually going to do anything anyways, but you know, now we just need to take out the Brood Alpha. And by putting it on the Brood Alpha, I meant I put it on the Brute. So, you know, this is absolutely taking longer than I wanted to, but we're getting there. It'll eventually end up with a win, hopefully. And you see that the Alpha tried to summon another Brute. Didn't work because that Brute's still alive, and you know, we're not just going to be here forever. But I've never actually had a fight against Geonosians drag out this long. Either they've just completely destroyed me, or I've destroyed them. The only times that that's happened is like when I've had Padme without much hitting power, and they just dispelled all of my protection all the time. I've timed out a couple times, I guess. But I've never had a match go that long against Geonosians that where I had Traya for sure. Usually it's like 1 minute, and either they've destroyed me or I've destroyed them. So now, you know, that there are a lot of dangerous teams remaining, and you know, that General Skywalker team, even though he's only 6-star, he's still a huge threat. Like I don't have many teams that can actually deal with that very well. However, my Commander Luke team deals with it extremely well. This is probably the best match possible for them, and so, you know, you want to target General Skywalker first, make him sit down, and then, you know, we're just trying to take out the other two. In 3v3, this team is just really not that scary. I know that people are all scared about what's going to happen with their against Relic 7 General Skywalker, and I'll just tell you now, like the people that I've talked to have tried using Commander Luke teams, even ones with like Gear 12 Commander Luke, or teams with, you know, really low relics on Han and Chewie. They still beat the Relic 7 General Skywalker team pretty easily. So 3v3 changes that team into maybe not a laughing stock. It's still hard to counter, but Commander Luke is absolutely a hard counter in this case. So 6 teams left, 4 on the top, 2 on the bottom. I decided to start working on the top, and there was one really obvious team that was just extremely deficient and weak. Didn't have a lot of gear on it. Great target for my Imperial troopers, so, you know, just taking the pretty standard 3-man team with Veers and Stark in range. And, you know, right now that there's no Zaalbar here, so, you know, there's a taunt with Juhani, but she doesn't passively taunt, and so you take out Carth because he's really squishy, Canderous because he wasn't stealthed, and then Juhani. Really easy 54 banners, and now I can start focusing on the remaining 5 teams with all of my remaining counters.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
The most obvious team that I needed to be able to counter now was the Palpatine with Bastila and Malak, and probably I should have been trying to take it out a little bit earlier in this match, but you know, honestly, I think that my target priority on different teams made sense given the circumstances. I decided to try the Thrawn, Malak, Nihilus team that I used in the last match against, there was a Palpatine plus Vader plus Malak, and I figured it would be about the same thing, and that was actually a huge ridiculous mistake. Bastila is in no way equivalent to Vader. Vader is way weaker than Bastila, and so, you know, she's causing fear everywhere. Malak, I have to hit him all the time. He's causing fear, and I'm preventing them from gaining turn meter from all of the different debuffs that are being dispelled and everything, but they're causing a huge amount of damage. The synergy between Palpatine and Bastila is amazing, and immediately I realized I was out of my depth here. Like, really huge waste of this team, and at some point I did decide to just quit out so that I didn't give them turn meter. And big mistake, lost 3 really, really strong characters for no gain, so not a great result.
You know about him. He wets the bed.
So I jumped into the match again with the counter that I probably should have started with, frankly. I didn't really have much hope that my 3 Padme characters would be able to take down this team, but I did figure that I'd probably be able to take out Emperor Palpatine and Bastila, and then Malak could be taken out using some other team. So, I had been hoping to use Padme against the clones, which is foolish, actually. I could have used Malak against their clones and been just fine and gotten an undersized win. So, a big mistake on my end. Didn't really think it through that well. So here I jumped in. I wanted to plan things out. I did put the protection up buff for everyone on with Padme, just because I wanted to start working on stacks a little bit earlier on. And one important thing to note is your Padme does need to be faster than Bastila here. If Padme is not faster than Bastila, you can, maybe you can pull out of it. And maybe actually it can be a better thing, just because Padme will then be able to dispel all those debuffs and turn them into stacks of courage for people. But otherwise, if she's faster, though, you can prevent all those debuffs from happening at all in the first place. And so, was able to take out Bastila, and now we're trying to take out Palpatine, and then the rest of the match is us just trying to take out Malak, which is kind of futile because it's only 3 people, and I can't land any health immunity, and I'm going to fast forward this a little bit here. Now, as you continue to watch, you'll note that I do get healing immunity off a couple times. However, I don't really know what mechanic is in play, but I just can't land I can't land anything on him. Well, I can't land healing immunity. Like, Anakin is just not doing it, even though he has a relatively high potency. Actually, I've modded him for some decent potency. I just can't land it, and the healing immunity is the only way to kill Darth Malak, frankly. And so the fact that I couldn't land it, maybe Palpatine reduces my potency. Actually, I think maybe that's the mechanic at work, but one way or another, didn't work. I don't know why I spent so long with Padme just shooting and stunning Malak. I don't know, but I did lose that one. However, it's only a lone Malak, and now we can just try any number of teams, and it won't hurt us because we can't lose any more banners for having failed. We've already failed the maximum times that we can be penalized for it. And so, I was initially thinking First Order, and then someone promised me that using the 3 Phoenix was going to clear it. So I decided I'd give it a whirl, and it did last for a while. You can see the timestamp at the top. We're at 2 minutes and still going strong. And after Hera died, I was bored. I hadn't made any progress, so I quit.
You're what the French call les incompétents.
No, it was really frustrating to be stuck on this team just because I didn't want to use 3 really strong teams to be able to counter it. And the Hera team would potentially have been useful in the later matches as well. So frustrating, but I decided that I just needed to keep on trucking. I wanted to use any other team other than the First Order team. However, I felt like this was a necessity. Now, you'll note that I'm not taking Watt here. I thought that it would probably be wise to take original Kylo, just because he has a lot of different tools to be able to counter Malak. And, this is a pretty tried and true method of being able to take down a lone Malak. Usually I try to take my full 5-man team if we're just in territory wars or something, but, we're not. We're at 3 men, so it changes things just a tiny bit. Now, Kylo is really important in this match just because he provides a lot of different important things, such as he gives turn meter. He also has an emergency stun that he can use if he wants to. He also has the healing immunity, which is also really important. Kylo Ren Unmasked is important just because he provides tenacity down on his basic. He also provides a 2-turn stun on Malak, so that's important. And then First Order Executioner is important because he's the damage. He does all the damage here. And so we're just trying to slowly whittle him down. We're trying to whittle him down way fast, like as fast as possible. But the reality is this Darth Malak has even more hit points than my last opponent's Darth Malak, and which is like he's well over 200,000 combined health and protection. And so, he's just really, really tough to shift. So one thing I will note too, one really strong advantage that we have against this Malak is he tries to do his Force Drain, and it doesn't work on either of the Kylos because they're immune to the health percentage attacks, just like Malak is, in fact. So he tries to do the Force Drain, and it doesn't work, and that feels great. However, he still can heal himself. He has a huge boost to his life leech, or whatever the ability is. Like when you hit someone, you take a certain percentage of the damage that you caused and heal yourself. So anyways, I immediately jumped into my next round, of my next matchup, which was going to be against those clones, because I'd had very few teams that could actually take out those clones. My First Order, presumably, I think that they actually had a decent chance of taking out clones, especially with Watt, just because, Rex's Annihilate doesn't really work on Kylo Ren, but they do a lot of damage, and they're way higher relic. So I decided to take Jedi Revan. This is not an ideal matchup because Echo does have his Zeta, which means that every time someone misses me, so I have foresight a lot from Grandmaster Yoda. Every time someone misses me, Echo just does 20% of my max health damage to me. So that's not ideal at all. And we're just trying to get through this and trying to, at the very least, if I can take out 5s, then I could probably, one by one take these other 2 clones out. But you need to have at least one of these guys go. And now that I've failed so many times and had to rearrange all my different matchups, I absolutely was not planning on having a perfect full clear. I knew that some of these teams were probably going to need 2 or 3 attempts to be able to chop down, and so that's just the goal here. However, with these clones, they can be so damaging. Like even just 1 or 2 of them alone, if you don't have the right team. I was really hoping that I'd be able to one-shot this squad. So being able to take out 5s was a huge relief. They're doing a lot of damage. They're causing a lot of pain, and we're pretty close to the Rex Annihilate. And I think that being able to get my mark off on Rex was probably something that saved me there, just barely in time. So, Rex isn't that resilient. Doesn't have very many hit points, and then people always mod him for speed, which is wise. That's how I have mine modded. But just because he's modded for speed means that he's probably not going to be super resilient anyways. And then, Echo, same thing. He does damage, but he's not super resilient. So took that SWAT out. Awesome. I have 3 teams left, and all of them are a little bit tricky, but now we can see what we can do against the rest of them. Now, my opponent did after that attack me. He hit me on the bottom zone a couple times, and then on the top zone as well. And I'll show you the teams. I'll zoom in a minute here, but the important takeaway was that my General Grievous squad was taken out, and then he failed 2 times against my Darth Revan team. My Commander Luke team, or Commander Skywalker, General Skywalker, was destroyed. My Asajj team with Spirit was destroyed on the first hit, and then I did hold a couple times with Darth Revan. And so, great result. I assumed that my opponent was going to keep attacking. He didn't. I don't know what the deal was. Just never attacked again for a long time, and so I decided to continue my pursuit of destroying his forces, and let's see how I did. So one awesome thing about resilience is that it forces you to theorycraft on a whole different level, and so I haven't used Embo yet at all in 3v3, but I did still have Watt alive, and I had Sunfac, which goes pretty well with Watt, so I decided to try to take out this Dooku team with Nest, and I know that it looks pretty less than ideal here, but the key here is, you want Embo to be one-shotting people as much as you can. He can, after he gets his contract, he gets an ability that allows you to attack the health past the protection. So if Nest still has her protection up, I can still conceivably use his special to be able to take her out, do a dent, make a dent in her health. and that's always useful. Dooku is annoying here because he's stealth Jango and himself, and Jango we can't even hurt, so we're just forced to shoot Nest. I really didn't want to hurt Nest's protection because I wanted to be able to actually do some damage to her with my next hit, and so I used Sunfac's debuff instead to be able to kind of avoid that, and then they were able to take some more turns so I could actually focus on the other two characters and just use my attacks from Embo to go on to Nest. And so Nest is actually going relatively quickly here, and that really helps so that we can target her health and protection and actually be doing damage. And so, you'll see that I used Sunfac to shoot Jango just because I didn't want to hit Nest and have her and give her that protection up bonus. Now, I was able to finally one-shot Nest, which is the goal here. Embo can hit really hard, and especially because he's ignoring armor, he's doing a lot of good. Now, Wad is really good here just because he's, he gave the weapons tech and the taunting tech, and that's wonderful, but then he's also helping me regenerate all of my different health and protection. He's actually cleansing a lot of my debuffs, and that's wonderful. He did eventually die, but again, that's actually okay, just because it helps alleviate the damage to Embo, who he can't be crit, which is great. That's really helpful because I have his unique Zeta, but beyond that, he's pretty squishy, and so I was able to take out Dooku there relatively quickly, and Embo's just on death's door. He did do a one-shot on Jango, however, and Jango wasn't allowed to revive just because of his weapons tech, and I was able to get the one-shot on a really tricky team with a pretty unorthodox team. So pretty happy with that result, and let's move on to the next one. I only had 2 more teams that I had to beat, and neither of them were extremely unbeatable, but they were both pretty tough, and the obvious priority here was trying to get into the ship zone, just because if I could take this squad out, then I could get into the ship zone and be able to get 2 zone bonuses for it. And if I couldn't take out that last team, that would be problematic, certainly, but it wouldn't necessarily be, it would be way more catastrophic if I failed to clear the current zone. And so I went in against this new team with my Emperor Palpatine team. It's not really the strongest. It doesn't have Bastila to go with it, or Malak, or anything, and Palpatine is one of those teams that, he's really good with a lot of different characters. He would be a lot better if he was able to take 7 characters with him. He'd be amazing in that format, just because, all of the different debuffs and everything that happen from all the different characters are getting turn meter, and, he'd be unstoppable in a 7v7 format, I think, except for against, teams with Malak or whatever. But otherwise, in 3v3 he suffers a little bit, unless he has the right characters like Bastila. And so I'm jumping in here just to try, my goal is obviously to win in one shot, but if I can't do that, the goal is to hopefully at least take down a few of the characters here. And if I can do that, then awesome. We're in luck, because if I can take everything out, but except for Newt or just Droideka or whatever, then I can 2-shot this team. And you can see Droideka is problematic here. I don't have a dispel, and after I was able to take out Magna Guard, and I was doing a good job initially at trying to ability block Droideka and everything, but he just kept putting his damage immunity stuff on himself. And so my best case scenario here was try to kill Newt and then maybe get lucky against Droideka, but as you can see, it's not going well. I'm gonna actually speed up the rest of the fight because it's not exciting. Well, it's exciting if you hate me, and if you're watching this, maybe you hate me, but probably not. Not yet, anyways. I've never been very impressed with Droideka in 5v5, but I think the 3v3 is a much better format for him. So, as problematic as he is here, I was a little bit impressed, at least. Alright, so sometimes you just have to shake it off after you take a beating, and, that's what we're doing here. We need to take out Droideka, and we need to use characters that aren't necessarily going to be super useful in trying to counter the Vader Zaalbar mission squad. And, I guess I'm not that convinced that these characters aren't that great, but they are Jedi, so Darth Vader would be way faster against them, and I just decided, what I needed was having dispels on this team. I couldn't get stuck behind the the droidica damage immunity thing. So I took Shaak Ti, who has her basic, and I'm reading her abilities because I'm still not wonderful at remembering which one is which. But, you know, Qui-Gon Jinn can, you know, he can do a couple things at least. He'll prevent damage. He's able to dispel. He's able to call an assist. You know, he's decent. So, you know, Shaak Ti also has her dispel on basic, and Ayla has her stun on basic. So wonderful combination. Was able to get max points for having already lost one battle. So yeah, my opponent has a 7-star Y-Wing, which is really interesting because he only had a 5-star Negotiator. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. Maybe they're going for malevolence or something, but that kind of stressed me out because I haven't faced a 7-star Y-Wing yet, so we have that to look forward to. And now we have this really interesting Vader plus Zaalbar and Mission team, and they're all pretty well modded. The Zaalbar doesn't have as much tenacity as I probably would have prescribed, but the goal here, I'm taking Hux so that they can't do any counters against me, and I don't really have any of my really premier First Order characters. You know, First Order Stormtrooper is great, but my First Order TIE Pilot, he's modded pretty indifferently. I never use him. Never, ever, unless we're doing something in Sith Raid where I, for some reason, get to scrape the bottom of the barrel. And, you know, the goal here is just to take out Vader before I just get completely destroyed by damage over time. And, you know, it's working okay, or it was at least. And then Zaalbar, of course, taunted. And, you know, one thing that I went into this match knowing was even if I failed this, I was still going to have a decent shot at being able to take Vader out in a subsequent match, just because Vader can't regenerate his protection, and so that's not going to trigger Zaalbar's passive taunt. And so if we can just, you know, beat Vader in a couple shots, and then we can slowly, you know, take out the rest of the team, then wonderful. That's kind of the goal here. And so you know, I'm obviously I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel. I'm using a Hux team and, you know, First Order TIE Pilot and everything. So I wasn't able to take out Vader, but I did make some progress. I decided to leave the damage as was, just because I wanted to be able to take out Vader in a subsequent match. And now I decided what I wanted to do was try to use my probe droid to just explode him, and I guess we'll see how that goes. So, you know, I didn't really know what team to take to make the best use of Imperial Probe Droid. He obviously wanted to get down to below his max protection, but, you know, otherwise, I just didn't really know. And so, you know, we want to have him explode. We want him to do all this crazy stuff. And, of course, Vader went in and ability blocked him after he was eligible to explode, and things just went downhill. Like the squad really wasn't going to do much good anyways. You know, the whole goal was just to explode and have him do something. But then, of course, Zaalbar had his taunt, and, I don't know, everything just went poorly. So I was really getting desperate here. I had one team up my sleeve that I had really been hoping to save until Vader had been taken out, but I was slowly realizing that I didn't really have any other characters to try to take him out with any kind of reasonable degree of success. So I did throw in my Machine Gun Leia squad here, and you know, the goal here was to at least be able to take Vader out, and then hopefully just slowly piecemeal, if that's a word, by piece, take down the rest of the squad. And I took out Vader relatively quickly. Like, he was pretty squishy, and like I said, he can't trigger his passive taunt, or at least even if he could, I had confusion on Zaalbar, so we couldn't gain any passive taunts or anything. And so, you know, I saw a window here. I might actually be able to win this without using any other squads. And so obviously I was going to go for it. I took out Mission, and I started to think I could actually maybe pull this off. And, you know, a team full of, I mean, 3PO is a great character, but a Gear 11 Leia and an Ackbar who's indifferently modded is, you know, it's a gift to be able to win against that squad with it. So got into Chromium on that battle, which was kind of funny. I guess apparently didn't need many banners to be able to get into Chromium, so that was good. And my opponent still hadn't attacked, but that was okay. I just wanted to finish this thing off, so jumping into Fleet, and we're taking Negotiator. And, you know, honestly, the fight against Y-Wing is pretty similar to the fight against Houndstooth. I would say the Houndstooth is actually probably still a better tank. The Y-Wing does a pretty decent job of filling in for the Houndstooth in general, and you don't have to gear a pilot. So, you know, I'll absolutely be farming Y-Wing once it's available to be farmed, but I don't know that it's really worth putting 7 stars on it right now. So the trick here, you know, I explain this every time, but the trick here against Negotiator, if it's faster, which it actually isn't faster in this case, my Negotiator is faster for once, but the trick is to get Anakin's health pool down to as low as you can. You know, you want to get it to below 50%, I think really below like 40%, and once you do that, you're going to trick the AI into having their first move not be daze. And I actually think that's really valuable. Even if you have the faster Negotiator, you don't want to have your team to be, you don't want them to be dazed. Like you really want them to you know, be able to have a lot of extra turns to be able to you know, hit this enemy team while they're dazed. So if you hit Anakin enough, then he's absolutely going to you know, get the buff to be able to avoid getting knocked out, which is nice for us, because then the next time Negotiator goes, the opponent's Negotiator goes, they're going to call in a reinforcement. And whereas you don't necessarily like want reinforcement from them, you do want to avoid getting dazed as long as possible. And so, you know, we're just chipping away here. You want to take out Y-Wing, and of course Clone Sergeant. I was really glad that my opponent's Plo didn't come in as reinforcements. And you know, I always call my Clone Sergeant in as my first reinforcement, just because you know, Houndstooth doesn't do well enough really to be able to you know, take all the tanking. And I found that my Jedi Anakin and Ahsoka die pretty often after that, and so I don't really even use 5s very often. Like only when my RNG is pretty bad and I can't actually finish off ships for one reason or another. So anyways, got 59 banners here. Not too hard. I've been beating Negotiators for a long time with my own Negotiator, and in this case I was actually faster than this one, so not too bad. And that score isn't necessarily the best, but it was still promising because my opponent had already failed to beat my Darth Revan team twice, and there's just not very many teams that are going to be able to take out Darth Revan. After you fail twice, you're probably going to be pretty desperate at that point. And so I figured the possibility was that I'd already won the match. And you know, I looked at my feat rewards and I got into Chromium. Here's what they look like in case you have never gotten into Chromium, in which case I'm glad you're watching these videos. And apparently my last ditch effort with the machine gun Leia got me the expose feat, so that was nice as well. And at the end of the day, my opponent didn't attack again, and so I'll just show you guys my defenses just so you guys can know what's going on, what my different squads were. So you know, this squad here, or this zone here, is I'm sure my opponent could have taken out some of these squads. I think that probably a mixture of the holiday plus you know, the demotivation of not probably being able to counter Darth Revan. I mean, they had their Darth Revan available, but they didn't have Bastila or Malak to go with him. So, you know, it was definitely problematic for them to be able to beat that squad. Probably tried Padme against it, didn't work. Commander Luke, and then after that, it was just over. So I did try to talk to my opponent, and as you can see, they didn't respond, and so I just told them it was a good talk, but I didn't actually mean it.
From now on, your troubles will be...
So, overwhelming, completely crushing victory against my opponent, at least score-wise, though my score was pretty problematic. You know, if my opponent had full cleared me, I doubt they would have been able to do this poorly. So, you know, there were some definitely good things that I was able to do. I was able to full clear, and I was able to, you know, keep my momentum going just a little bit at least, even when I threw away a bunch of really useful characters for 0 gain. And, you know, and there's always something to be said about that. I definitely learned a few things about my roster and about different squad compositions and everything, but, you know, at the end of the day, I really want to be more efficient than that. So, got out of this one, luckily, and, you know, now we're in the semifinals, and we'll see what happens there. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching, and remember that in all things, Xaereth prevails.